I never expected my entire world to shift in a single night. For 2 years, I thought I'd found the perfect partner in Kara. We met at a mutual friend's housewarming party where she teased me about my lame attempt at cooking. Our banter felt effortless. She invited me to try her famous pasta dish, and from that moment on, I was smitten. Everything about her was magnetic. She loved my sense of humor, tolerated my odd obsessions, and introduced me to new foods and music I'd never experienced. I thought it was real. I thought it was truly love. I was wrong. 3 days ago, she claimed she was heading out with friends to see a big show. Specifically, it was a once-in-a-lifetime performance by a band I'd been dying to see. She told me there was only one ticket available, and I didn't make the cut. I swallowed my disappointment and gave her space. That evening, I got a notification on social media. Someone I followed posted a clip from that exact show, except I noticed Kara sitting next to someone else, this random guy with his arm around her. I couldn't believe my eyes. Everything froze inside me. I tried to convince myself it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe they bumped into each other. Maybe he was just a friendly stranger. But the way Kara leaned into him, smiling in that intimate way, gave me a sinking feeling. I replayed the clip. Her head rested on his shoulder and his hand was clearly on her thigh. My gut churned. The worst part was realizing she'd intentionally cut me out of something I cared about. She knew how much that band meant to me. Then she went anyway, with another guy. I knew I had to confront her. That night, I waited for her at her place, which used to feel like a safe second home for me. She arrived wearing the band's t-shirt and a bright smile, but it faded when she saw me. I asked who the guy was, and she insisted he was just a coworker who happened to score an extra ticket. She stammered about not wanting to disappoint me, about how the coworker had a last-minute opening. It was all nonsense. My questions got sharper. She folded her arms and started deflecting, calling me paranoid. At that point, I felt anger welling up. I asked her to let me see her phone. She refused, saying I was invading her privacy. I asked why she would hide something if it was so innocent. She snapped that I was acting like a jealous maniac. I reminded her we'd been together for 2 years. 2 years of sharing our lives, our secrets, our families. She demanded that I leave. I insisted on answers. She tried to flee to her bedroom and lock the door, but I blocked her path, not laying a finger on her but standing firm. I refused to walk away without the truth. She finally cracked. She said she'd been seeing him for a while, that it just happened, and she hadn't meant for me to find out this way. I felt my chest tighten and my vision blur. Everything I knew was a lie. I asked if she even loved me at all. She stood there, silent, before muttering something about feeling suffocated. All my illusions shattered. 2 years wasted on someone who could lie so easily. She told me to get out, then threatened she'd call the police if I refused. My heart pounded, but I left with my dignity intact. Back at my apartment, I sat in the living room, replaying everything. I remembered the way she used to call me sweet names, how we'd planned weekend trips, how she made me believe we had a future. She used my trust as a shield. All the while, she was with him behind my back. I checked my phone for any messages from her, but there was nothing. I stared at old photos of us on my phone, deleting them one by one. My best friend, Marcus, called after hearing the news. I barely had words, just a hollow ache inside. Marcus showed up with pizza and sympathy, listening as I recounted the whole betrayal. He reminded me I deserved better. Then he asked me how I planned to handle it. My knee-jerk reaction was to beg for her back, but that urge evaporated as soon as I realized how thoroughly she'd deceived me. Marcus told me she'd probably twist the story, make me out to be the bad guy, so I should protect myself. The next day, I decided to collect anything I had at her place, but before I could reach out, she texted me, "Don't contact me again." I stared at my phone in disbelief. She cheated on me, yet she was the one telling me to stay away. I felt fury, hot, rolling through me. But I also felt a surge of clarity. She'd threatened to call the police if I showed up. She was painting me as the aggressor, framing me as unstable. I called Marcus, who said I should let it go and move on. But something in me refused to just let her rewrite our history. I needed deep closure. I needed her to stop acting like I was the problem. So I plotted. I remembered she once bragged about how easy it was to fool people. She had this streak, forging a doctor's note to skip work, or lying to her parents about her whereabouts. I always thought it was harmless mischief, but now I realized it was part of her character. She was a habitual liar. If she wanted to paint me as some scary ex-boyfriend, I needed to protect my reputation. I gathered every piece of evidence I had: text messages, photos, voice notes, times she admitted to small lies. I compiled them, ready in case I needed to defend myself. I also discovered hints she'd been siphoning money from me. Little things like ordering stuff with my credit card, claiming it was for the household, but it was actually for her personal use. There were dinners she said she'd pay me back for, but she never did. I started to see how she'd manipulated me financially as well. The heartbreak morphed into outrage. She took my trust, my love, and my finances for granted, all while sneaking around with some guy. I wasn't going to let her keep spinning lies. If she wanted a war, I was ready to fight. First, I canceled the shared credit card she'd been using. Then I changed all my passwords from streaming services to online banking. I made sure to remove her as an authorized user on anything connected to me. I wasn't giving her leeway. Next, I contacted a lawyer friend for advice. He said that if she tried to claim harassment, I should have a record of her threatening me and the context. He advised me to document everything, so I did. Every text, every voicemail, every instance I discovered of her lying, I stored it securely. I was building my case. I knew she'd love nothing more than to see me cower. Instead, I posted a calm update on my social media. Just a simple statement. Kara and I have broken up. I won't be discussing details publicly, but I appreciate your respect during this time. I locked down my privacy settings. I refused to give her ammunition. My lawyer friend suggested I avoid contacting her directly, but I needed my belongings back. So I sent one polite email detailing the items I needed. No threats, just clarity. I emphasized that I wanted a peaceful resolution. She never responded. Avoid. Days passed. I found out from a mutual friend that Kara was telling people I was stalking her. That stunned me. I hadn't even left my place except to work. I'd sent one email, which she ignored. Then I received a forwarded message from another friend showing Kara's claims that I was obsessed and threatening her. She said she was considering getting a restraining order. My blood boiled. She was rewriting history, just as I feared. I called Marcus, who told me to stay calm. He reminded me that I had evidence. Let her spin her lies. I was prepared. Then, out of the blue, a police officer knocked on my door. He asked me a few questions, explaining someone had filed a complaint alleging harassment. I invited him inside and calmly showed him every bit of communication I'd sent Kara. A single, polite email. I also showed him the threatening text messages she'd sent me, including the one warning me never to contact her again or else. The officer seemed relieved that I was cooperative and had proof. He told me not to reach out to her further, which I agreed to. I had no intention of contacting her. Despite this, I seethed with frustration. She was smearing my name, acting like I was a dangerous predator. I decided if she wanted to escalate, I would show everyone who she really was. I reached out to people we both knew, but only after they approached me first. I never initiated contact with her circle. Instead, I calmly shared screenshots of her confessions, her admissions of cheating, and her manipulative texts. I let them see the truth. Some were shocked, some disbelieving, but most realized I wasn't the monster she was painting me to be. My revenge had quietly begun. I learned from a coworker of hers that she was worried about losing her job if this scandal spilled over. Apparently, her employer frowned upon interpersonal drama, especially if it risked company image. She was already on thin ice for missing deadlines and lying about sick days. I didn't contact the employer directly, but rumors spread. People talked about her forging notes, how she'd bragged about lying to skip shifts. Eventually, she was called in for a review. A friend told me that her position was at risk. I might have felt bad if she hadn't tried to ruin me. Then came the real twist. The guy she cheated with found my social media and sent me a direct message. He introduced himself as Colin and apologized for any harm caused. Apparently, Kara told him she was single. He only learned she had a boyfriend when mutual acquaintances started whispering. He felt duped and reached out to clarify. He wasn't aware she'd been using him for months. We exchanged details, verifying timelines. He seemed genuinely upset at her deception. I didn't trust him completely, but hearing his side confirmed my suspicions. Kara was playing both of us, lying at every turn. Colin told me that Kara tried to turn him against me, claiming I was abusive, controlling, and prone to rage. He said she insisted I'd been physically violent in the past. My stomach turned at her audacity. I'd never laid a hand on her, nor had I ever threatened her safety. Colin realized he was dealing with a pathological liar. He wanted out, but she'd borrowed money from him too. She promised to pay him back, but he suspected that was a lie. We bonded over our mutual betrayal. It was surreal. Two men swindled by the same woman. We compared stories about her manipulations. She'd told me I was the only one who understood her. She told him she'd never met anyone like him. She played us like pawns. My anger burned hotter with each new revelation. Colin asked if I planned to sue her or something similar. Legally, I wasn't sure if we had a strong case. Emotional damage is one thing, but proving financial exploitation might be tricky, especially if it wasn't a large sum. Still, I wanted justice. At the very least, I wanted her to face consequences instead of hiding behind her victim narrative. I drafted a detailed account of everything that happened, complete with screenshots and timestamps. I included statements from Colin, who was willing to corroborate. I showed how Kara lied about the show, the cheating, the false harassment claims, and her attempts to discredit me. I wasn't planning to post it publicly yet. It was more of an insurance policy. I kept my lawyer friend in the loop. He said that if she ever tried to escalate legally, we'd have enough evidence to countersue for defamation. It felt empowering to have a plan. I refused to be her scapegoat. Eventually, Kara reached out to me indirectly through a friend, claiming I was damaging her reputation. She insisted I stop sharing personal details, but all I'd done was defend myself when people asked. I told that intermediary friend that Kara should talk to my lawyer if she had concerns. I never got a formal complaint. Meanwhile, Colin cut ties with her entirely, blocking her number and social media. He told me she was furious, sending him frantic messages from different accounts. She begged him to believe she was the victim. Neither of us was falling for that anymore. The real satisfaction came when I got a call from an acquaintance who worked at the local news blog. They'd heard rumors about Kara's workplace drama. They wanted to confirm if she'd really been forging notes and possibly defrauding coworkers. I didn't provide an official statement, but I did confirm a few details off the record. Soon, word got around that Kara might be let go. She tried calling me from a blocked number, demanding I retract these lies. I simply said, "Talk to my lawyer," and hung up. There were no lies, just the truth, exposed for all. My revenge wasn't about destroying her life completely. It was about making sure she couldn't keep trampling over people without consequence. She'd chosen to lie, cheat, and then paint me as a villain. She thought I'd roll over. Instead, her house of cards was collapsing. People were seeing her for who she really was, manipulative, deceitful, and reckless. I didn't need to do anything extravagant. Her own actions did most of the work. I'd just shone a light on them. It was a slow burn, and each time I heard another piece of fallout, I felt a grim satisfaction. She lost her job soon after. The official reason was violation of company policy and misconduct. I heard she tried to blame it on personal stress, but her boss had seen enough. She'd shown up late, called out with false excuses, and tried to con the HR department with bogus documents. In a final, desperate move, she threatened a wrongful termination suit, but no lawyer would touch her case. Her lies were too well documented. Someone told me she was furious, blaming me for everything. I just shrugged. Maybe if she hadn't cheated, lied, and framed me, she'd still have a job. Meanwhile, Colin managed to recoup some money she owed him by threatening small claims court. She finally paid him back, probably afraid of another scandal. As for me, I never got my belongings back, but I considered them a small price for freedom. I stopped trying to retrieve them because it wasn't worth further contact. I heard she was couch surfing after her landlord gave her notice for repeatedly disturbing neighbors. It seemed everything was unraveling in her life. I couldn't find it in myself to feel pity. She'd tried to have me labeled a criminal. She got exactly what she deserved. I blocked her everywhere, refused any attempts at communication, and focused on rebuilding my life. I got a new job opportunity in another city. I was grateful to step away from the mess. Before I moved, a part of me wanted to post everything publicly, the entire story, from her first lie to her last betrayal. But I realized I didn't need to. Enough people knew. My name was cleared. Her mask was off. Posting might have felt good momentarily, but I didn't want to be tethered to her drama any longer. My revenge was already complete in its own way. That doesn't mean I forgave her. Far from it. I still feel the sting of betrayal, but I've channeled that anger into ensuring she can't easily lie her way into a free pass anymore. She threatened me with police, with a restraining order, tried to ruin my reputation, and now she's dealing with the fallout of her own actions. Every time I think about how easily she dismissed 2 years of our relationship, I feel a pang of bitterness. However, I refuse to let her define my future. She's a cautionary tale, nothing more. I've moved on, but I haven't forgotten. Sometimes I wonder if she ever reflects on the damage she caused. Maybe she's incapable of genuine remorse. She played me for a fool and never once apologized sincerely. She only panicked when her own comfort was threatened. I've heard through the grapevine she's tried to spin new lies, but fewer people believe her now. She's gained a reputation as someone you don't trust. That alone is satisfying. Colin and I still chat occasionally, laughing at the absurdity of it all. It's weird, but it's also comforting to know I wasn't alone in being duped. We survived her lies together. So that's how I turned the tables on my cheating, deceitful ex. I didn't raise my voice or threaten her. I simply let her expose herself. She lost her job, her new boyfriend, and her standing in our social circle. She tried to get the law on her side, but the evidence proved her fabrications. In the end, she was left with nothing but her own mess. I'm living proof that you don't have to forgive a betrayal to move on. Sometimes all it takes is clarity, patience, and the truth. She lit the match. I just fanned the flames.